When you're thinking about Venice, probably your first thoughts will go to famous gondolas and their gondoliers. The Basilica di San Marco at St. Mark's Square and Doge's Palace. Of course, you will remind yourself of Venice Carnival and its masks. But let's see what's Venice really about in 2024. I won't guide you through its narrow streets, through its impressive churches and basilicas, through its crowded squares, and through its busy promenades. Instead of guiding you through all the historical landmarks, we will do the expectation versus reality checks about some attractions. I will tell you some interesting stories and even show you the dark side of Venice. Most of us imagine Venice with its symbolic gondolas and the flirtatious and virtuously singing gondoliers. However, the reality today wasn't as romantic as I have imagined. Today's gondoliers are waiting to provide you with a commercial boat ride, meanwhile sitting and scrolling through their phones, instead of luring you with their charms for an experience of your lifetime. The price for their services is announced at the board next to each of them, so why bother? I also heard only one gondolier singing during the whole day in Venice. They say that they don't sing anymore to protect the income of professional singers and songwriters, and that there is a fine of 1,000 euros if they do sing. Or maybe the young gondoliers are simply resting after they have completed their 400 hours of training and have paid up to 5,000 euros for their license, if not inherited from their fathers, to become a gondolier. Or maybe they don't really bother anymore because they know that they have the monopoly. There are too many of us tourists, and just 400 of them. You make the math. According to a popular urban legend with no factual basis, every detail of the gondola has its own symbolism. This symbolism is likely influenced by the need to explain the shape to tourists, rather than the shape being influenced by those symbols. They are not mentioned in any writings about the gondola prior to the current evolution of the shape of the ferro. Every time I do a city trip, something that you always find on my itinerary is a second-hand bookstore. This time was no different. So here I am at the Caia Longa Santa Maria Formosa Street, maybe some time ago, when the shop just started to exist. It was considered to be far from the tourist flows. Now I would definitely say that it is very touristy. Even though that I visited Venice out of the high season, there was no opportunity to feel yourself united with something more than a simple commercial venue, attracting hundreds of tourists to climb a staircase made of books. It was a disappointing experience due to the queues and the obligation to follow the tourist flows. And even the famous black cat didn't seem to like it that much anymore. Venetian masks have a long history of protecting their wearer's identity during promiscuous or decadent activities. The masks are formed from papier-mâché and are wildly decorated. Now they are the emblem of Venetian carnival, a street fair celebrating hedonism. But Venetian masks have been worn in Venice since antiquity. The masks served an important social purpose of keeping every citizen on an equal playing field. Masked servant or nobleman, anyone can ask or be asked anything without fear of their true identity being discovered. The moral of the people was maintained through the use of masks, for with no faces everyone had voices. As a result of concealment of identity, people naturally found themselves taking advantage of the situation. The society grew even more decadent. Eventually, the wearing of masks in daily life was banned and limited only to certain months of the year. This period evolved into the carnival we know now. And now that we are talking about the identities and disguise, I want to remind you of a true son of the city of masks. You might already know that I adore the music of Antonio Vivaldi, who was born in Venice, but I won't tell you his story, but the story of another extraordinary Venetian instead, the one of Giacomo Casanova. He might be known as the world's most famous lover and ladies' man, but Casanova was a much more multifaceted character, and his life was filled with adventurous and sticky situations that weren't always related to women. He was sharp, brilliant even, and entered a university at the age of 12. Later, he was a member of the clergy, a gambler, a military officer, a musician, a prankster, a social philosopher, a writer, a seasoned traveler. He wrote satires, fought duels, and escaped from prison more than once. He was able to say anything with a straight face, and doing so was an excellent spy. Plus, he was a scammer. When he fled to Paris, he pretended to be an alchemist. He told to the people of Paris that he was 300 years old, and that he could create diamonds from scratch. He traveled to England and scammed his way into an audience with King George III. He met with Catherine the Great. And that is just a glance of the story of the most fascinating sons of the city of masks. I promise to show you the obscure side of Venice. Be aware of the dark souls out there.